Ahoy there, my children of the Force. Welcome to Star Wars Transmissions. And with me, I got my boy, Ozzy, Star Wars nerd. How's it going, Ozzy?
Pretty good. Hello there, everyone.
I'm super excited that you were able to join me for this. You're my first, other than Danielle, you're the first person that I've had on to do a stream with me. So I'm excited that you and I get to shoot the breeze about Star Wars and answer some cool questions.
Yeah.
So it's 7:30 p.m. on the East Coast of the USA. What time is it by you?
Like 9:30 in the morning.
And it's Wednesday here. It's Thursday by you, right?
Yep, that's right.
That's still just like, it like blows my mind. But all right, what do you say? You want to get into these questions?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, let's do it. So for our first question, Princess Leia Organa asks, who/what killed Ahsoka? So with the Ahsoka series dropping, is it like 2 months from now? 2 months-ish from now? I thought this would be a good question to answer and to start with. And so we know that because of the rise of Skywalker, we hear Ahsoka's voice as one of the dead Jedi that is speaking to Rey right before she winds up killing Darth Sidious. And that movie takes place in about 35 ABY. So we know at some point Ahsoka is going to die before then. So Ozzy, I'm going to have you start us off. What or how do you think Ahsoka died, or how do you think she eventually dies?
I'm contradicted a bit because I don't think she even did die, and that it's probably some world between world stuff that might get explored in the Ahsoka series.
Oh, snap. So you think that she may still be alive during the events of The Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, I mean, knowing Dave Filoni, she's probably not dead. And World Between Worlds would be a possibility to have that connection still.
So do you think that we may find out that she's like stuck in the World Between Worlds or something?
Maybe not stuck, but she might just see it all happening in one of those little portal things.
Oh, snap. I see what you're saying. So do you think then her voice speaking to Rey, do you think that could be from the past?
That could be like her in her, however old she is in the Ahsoka series.
Whoa.
Just her seeing that portal and then speaking to her or something. I can't remember what she said because I've only seen the scene once. But
yeah. Dude, so that thought like never even dawned on me that maybe Ahsoka is speaking to Rey from the World Between Worlds, because we know that Ahsoka has access to the World Between Worlds. We're going to see her access the World Between Worlds at some point in the Ahsoka series. It never once occurred to me that, she could potentially see that moment in the future and be speaking to Rey. That is awesome, dude.
Yeah. What was your theory though before I brought that up?
My thought is that we're going to see her probably die at some point, and the reason being is because all these shows and Dave Filoni's movie that's going to be taking place during the New Republic era, they're culminating in Dave Filoni's film, and he said that the battle that's going to take place in that film is going to change the course of Star Wars history. Now, he could be talking about it as like, hey, this is going to change the course of like the Star Wars fandom, as far as this is going to be an epic battle or an epic movie. But my thought was something seriously drastic is going to happen in that film. And I wonder if we may see Ahsoka potentially like sacrifice herself to save people in that movie, or to do something to save the galaxy and to thwart Grand Admiral Thrawn. So that would be my thought, is that we might see Ahsoka sacrifice herself. I can't imagine that we're going to see her die in the Ahsoka series. I think that if she were to die, it would probably be in that film. Which,
yeah, you go, sorry.
I was just saying, so there was the announcement, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. We just got some information that the planned Star Wars film for 2025 is getting pushed back to 2026. So there's going to be 2 films in 2026. And then I've been seeing stuff saying that there's another one dropping in 2027. I wonder if Dave Filoni's film is going to be one of the films in 2026 or the 2027 film.
Probably 2026, yeah. I hope.
Yeah. So, dude, I like your theory a lot, man. Like I said, that never once dawned on me that Ahsoka could potentially access the world between worlds and speak to Rey. So I'm trying to remember, man, in Rebels, when we see the world between worlds for the first time, do we see Ezra speaking to Ahsoka? I know he pulls her through, but does he speak to her first? I don't remember. It's been a minute since I've watched that episode.
He might not, but I think Palpatine had something to do with it as well, and I can't remember if he spoke to them or not through it. But they probably could. You
know what? Palpatine was doing that like Sith alchemical ritual, whatever he was doing to access the portal, and they could speak to him through it. I think they were speaking to him. I mean, I know Palpatine whipped that like fiery like lasso or fiery whip at them and got Ezra's ankle, and I'm assuming they could speak to each other, but I can't recall. It's been a little bit since I've watched that episode.
Yeah.
So all right, so let me ask you this: if you had to choose, which would you prefer? Would you rather Ahsoka potentially die to let's say sacrifice herself to save someone or to somehow thwart Thrawn, or we find out that she spoke to Rey using the world between worlds?
I'd much rather that she died. Just because I don't like the world between worlds.
I know you and I have talked about that before. See, here's the thing. I like when Star Wars gets weird. I like Star Wars getting weird, and like the world between worlds is so weird. I'm curious how people who have not watched Rebels and don't know what the world between worlds is, I'm curious how those people that are going to watch the Ahsoka series, like what they're going to think about the world between worlds. Because it is a wild concept.
Yeah. I think, didn't Dave say that you don't have to watch Rebels to understand what's happening in the Ahsoka show?
I'm not sure, but I mean, I would imagine that they would probably. My thought would be that, hey, if I were working on that show, I would be saying, hey, we have to assume that there are going to be people that are going to not watch Rebels at all, or any of the cartoons for that matter. So we have to be able to explain some of these characters' backstories and some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about that we saw introduced in Rebels. I mean, just thinking about season 3 of Mandalorian, there were a bunch of people that didn't know what a Purrgil was. So that it would make sense to me that they would have to explain at least some stuff that was shown in Rebels.
Yeah, and then like Book of Boba Fett, think of the amount of people that didn't watch that, and then how they resolved it with season 3 sort of explaining what happened.
Very good point. Yeah. So, man, I think I'm in agreement with you. I think as much as it would suck, as much as it would pain me, I would probably rather Ahsoka dying or sacrificing herself or something, because I think it'd be meaningful. And I mean, when was she born? So she was. Do you know how old she was supposed to be in the Clone Wars? Was she supposed to be like 14?
I think she's like 17 or something by the end of the Clone Wars.
So you figure she was born in like 30-something BBY-ish. I was reading something that said she's like 45 odd years old in Mando season 3 or season 2. Okay, and that would make sense. So then if you figure about 30 years-ish, she would be pushing like 78, almost 80 at that point. So she'd be a geezer at that point.
I mean, one thing I do need to bring up is that her species lives 20 years or so longer than humans.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I read it somewhere quite a while ago, but and Force sensitives live longer as well. So
is that correct? So do you know like the reasoning behind that? Is it because the Force maybe like keeps their body healthy, I guess.
Yeah, probably. I remember reading it somewhere. Yeah.
So yeah, Ahsoka would be pushing. She'd be somewhere in her 80s by the events of the Rise of Skywalker. So I probably, like, if we, especially in a movie theater, if Ahsoka winds up dying, I would probably be crying my eyes out like a baby. I'm such a baby when it comes to Star Wars now. So I feel like it would be, as much as it would suck, it would be like, holy crap, like that was amazing to witness.
Yeah.
So before we move on to our next question, any last thoughts on Ahsoka and her potential demise?
No, I think it'll be either World Between Worlds and she isn't dead in Rise of Skywalker and she becomes some Force goddess thing because of that Mortis stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Because yeah, she is. So I looked this up the other day, and her Wikipedia says that she technically died in, was it 20 BBY, 19 BBY? Because yeah, the sister technically brought her back to life. So yeah, she could potentially. I wonder if that could be another thing. If depending upon how weird or trippy Dave Filoni wants to get, if Ahsoka does die, could she become like some sort of Force entity, or potentially be something similar to what the sister is? Maybe not the exact same thing. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I just saw someone brought up something in chat saying Force-sensitive Togrutas can live up to 300 years.
That's wild if that's the case.
So, yeah.
Wild. So yeah, really quickly before we move on to our next question, Sean, what's going on, my man? Billy, this is my homie Aussie Star Wars nerd. Aussie runs the YouTube channel Aussie Star Wars Nerd. So if you're unfamiliar with his channel, make sure to check it out. He's got some excellent videos up for you guys to watch. So let's. Oh, and of course, I do this all the time with my streams. I get images and then I start talking and I forget to run through my damn images. So I got a nice image of Ahsoka that I forgot to show for us. But anyway, all right. So let's move on to our next question, which comes from Alec Jackman 2655, who asks, "Who do you think would win in a duel between Dagan Gera and Qui-Gon Jinn?" So do you want to start this one off, or would you like me to start this one off? You
can start it off because
okay.
I sort of started the last one.
Okay. All right. So now before we dive into this question, I feel like there could be some potential spoiler warnings for Jedi Survivor. So if you haven't played that game yet, you don't want anything spoiled, now's a good time to dip out. I'm going to try to not mention any spoilers, but just in case I do, this is your spoiler warning. So my first thought when I saw this question was, oh, Qui-Gon would probably win. But then I started thinking about it more and more. I'm like, all right, let me kind of like size them up and think about this a little bit more deeply. So Qui-Gon, even though he wasn't on the Jedi Council, he was a powerful enough Jedi, a knowledgeable Jedi, to the point where he could have been on the Jedi Council had he not been, at least in the eyes of the Council at that point, a maverick. Because Qui-Gon, kind of like Dooku to some extent, wanted to be guided by the Force rather than the whims of the Senate and politicians. He wanted to do things based upon what the Force was telling him, or what he could sense in the Force. So to that extent, he was kind of a maverick, but he could have been a Jedi Master on the Jedi High Council. He wasn't battle tested. The Clone Wars hadn't happened yet, but neither was Dagan Gera. Dagan Gera, as far as we are aware, he did not have any chance of being on the Jedi High Council. And from what we gather from Jedi Survivor, he seemed to be in the Jedi Councils. He was on the bad side of the Jedi Council, at least for a little bit. Qui-Gon does get murked by Darth Maul, but Darth Maul at that point, if you think about the rule of two, right? from starting from Darth Bane to Darth Sidious. As you go from one Sith to the next, they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So when we get to Darth Maul, he's 2 Sith Lords away from Darth Sidious, right? Or maybe 3, I guess, if you're saying so. Darth Maul, Count Dooku, and then Darth Vader and Darth Sidious, right? So Darth Maul is going to wind up being one of the strongest Sith Lords in history. You can make the argument. And the reference book Ultimate Star Wars says that Maul was trained by Sidious to be a living weapon of the Sith. He wound up becoming one of the deadliest and most efficiently trained Sith in the Sith Order. So even though Qui-Gon got murked by Darth Maul, he got killed by a seriously dangerous and powerful Sith Lord. And we also have to remember that Qui-Gon was apprenticed to Count Dooku, who was one of the best duelists and Force users of his time. And for those reasons, I'm going to say Dagan Gera. Initially, like I said, initially my gut was Qui-Gon, and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I definitely think Qui-Gon would beat Dagan Gera in a duel. What's your thoughts, Ozzy?
As I think I told you before, I haven't actually played Jedi Survivor yet, but I've seen all the cutscenes, like just about every single one. And I think, has Dagan got some ability that allows him to regrow his limbs or something?
So this is like, I love this part in the game. What my thought is we were seeing him, how he was using the Force. Like, so in Jedi Survivor, so again, spoilers, we see him get his arm chopped off by Santari Khri. Because basically Dagan Gera is acting a fool. Santari Khri is trying to stop him. And so she chops off his arm. And when you, as Cal Kestis, duel Dagan Gera for the final time, you see him, he's got, it's like kind of like, it almost looks like a ghost arm. And how I interpreted that was, we're seeing the Force, basically the visual of how he's using the Force to wield his lightsaber. Because prior to that, he had a double-bladed lightsaber that he could disconnect and dual wield. And so with him being only having one arm, he would have one saber in his one hand, and then the other one would just kind of float, and he would attack you with this floating saber that he's clearly using the Force to attack you with. And so when you're dueling him for that final time, my thought was, we're getting to see actually how he's using the Force to wield that saber. That was how I interpreted it.
Yeah. If that's all the case, keeping in mind he's been in that Bacta stuff for how many 100 years?
Oh man,
how many was it?
Was it like 200 years? I don't remember. It's a long time, yeah, because I don't think
a long time.
Yeah, we don't know the exact year when the whole stuff with Dagan Gera has taken place in the past. We know the Nile are around, so that has to be some point after 232 BBY. So we're getting closer to, so maybe it's like 230 to 20 something BBY. So almost 200 years potentially he was in stasis.
Yeah. So I mean, he's probably a little rusty, and if he's able to do all that after not doing anything for that many years, I reckon he could probably beat Qui-Gon.
So you think he could?
I think he's too fast for Qui-Gon, like with all the stuff he was able to do.
He is fast as hell. And like, so one of the thoughts that I had when I was thinking about this is, it took Cal and Bode, both of you fighting him, to be able to kill Dagan Gera. So two individuals beating this. He's at this point basically a dark Jedi. And he's tapping into the dark side, because we see him, he bleeds his Kyber crystal, which, oh my God, that moment was so sick.
That was awesome
to see that. He's tapping into the dark side. And I've mentioned this in other streams before. I liken using the dark side to like PEDs in sports. It gives you, you're being able to access the Force and use Force powers more easily and more quickly than you would be able to without, tapping into the dark side. So you'd have to assume that if he, wherever his strength was prior to him being in stasis, it's now amplified at least a little bit now that he's tapping into the dark side.
Yeah.
I could see it going either way. I think I'm going to go with Qui-Gon though, man. I could totally see Dagon whooping his ass though. The thing too that I think makes it a little tricky is that we don't have a lot of history to use as a guide to figure out who we could say would win, because really as far as I can recall, Qui-Gon's fought in the Phantom Menace. I think did he fight in the Age of Republic? I think we see him fight. There's the Age of Republic comic where we see him and Obi-Wan in I can't remember the name of the planet. They're helping this planet that's engulfed in a war. And then in Master and Apprentice, we see him fighting, but they're not fighting. He's not fighting like a Sith Lord or anything like that. So we don't have a lot to judge Qui-Gon from. And I mean, same thing with Dagon Gera. We only have Jedi Survivor. Do you think? So one of the things that I thought about when I was kind of thinking about this question, do you think we may see Dagon Gera in some more High Republic stuff?
I hope so, because he's pretty cool. I think Reverend Reborn just posted that question there. Said, do you think we'll see Dagon or Ravis in High Republic Phase 3 or Dawn of the Jedi?
Revan, welcome to the chat. And yes, so I'm glad. That is an excellent question. I was thinking the same exact thing. And I think so, right? How could you introduce these characters and then not at least even if it's just, hey, they just quickly pop up in one story. How could you not, right? I feel like that'd be such a wasted opportunity. And I would love to... Actually,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that reminds me of when they did, in the Brotherhood book, they had Anakin, I think it was, speaking to Cal Kestis and Jaro Tapal.
Yes.
Even something like that would be cool.
That would be, and yes, I agree. So you could just do something so simple where it's just a very quick little thing, and nerds like me, I would lose my shit over something like that. So yeah, I feel like that's an easy slam dunk for Lucasfilm. Hey, we've got Phase 3 coming up. I mean, I have to imagine, so what happens with the Nihil in Jedi Survivor, right?
Most of it, yeah.
So we don't know what the heck happens, just that, and they don't you kind of have to infer that it's the Nihil, because they don't specifically state that, it's the Nihil attacking, but Dagon Gera... I
think in the subtitles.
Do they
have it in the subtitles?
Oh, you might be right. You may be right. So yeah, Dagon Gera, Centauri Kree, they're on Tanalorr, and the Jedi Council is kind of talking, because I can't remember. It's been a few weeks since I played that part of the game. Basically, the Jedi Council is trying to decide something about Tanalorr. I think whether they're going to have a presence on the planet. And then Centauri Kree and Dagon, they're waiting outside of this this temple chamber. And the Nihil jump out of light speed and they attack. And I have to imagine, you can't just show that and have no plan. I would think no plan to not explain what the deal is, why the Nihil attacked Tanalorr, what were they doing there, what were they looking to gain by attacking that planet. So I would hope that we are going to see more of Tanalorr, more of Dagon Gera, and kind of what the Nihil were up to. I also would as Revan mentioned, I would like to know more about Ravis, because Ravis mentions in the game that I think he says that Dagon Gera saved his life, or did Dagon beat him in combat? I can't remember what it is.
I think Dagon beat him in combat, which means he joined Dagon or something.
Yeah, he basically had to do Dagon's bidding as a part. A part of his culture or his species?
It would have been some species thing.
Yeah. The Gendai, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it'd be cool to see that and to get to learn more about Ravis. He was such a cool character, Ravis.
I don't even think he's dead.
I'm trying to remember.
He's a Gendai.
Do we see Cal kill him? I'm trying to remember. I think we do, though.
I mean, Cal sort of just does that, but he's a Gendai. He regrows everything.
That's true, dude. So, and in Legends, I never, this is almost blasphemy, I haven't watched the entirety of the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series. Does Dirge die in that?
I don't think he even does, because I think he comes back and Anakin has to literally put him in an escape pod and push him into a star or something in some comic, I think it is.
I was going to say, because we've gotten him in Dr. Aphra, and I'm trying to remember what, I think they did the same thing in Dr. Aphra. Did they launch him out of the airlock? I'm trying to remember what, but I don't think he's dead. I don't think he died. But yeah.
I don't think he can be, knowing his species.
I gotta read more on Gendai, because I don't know a ton about their species. But yeah, I mean, to me, those are like, I have to imagine with how popular this game is, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, that Lucasfilm knows, like, hey, let's talk about these characters. I would think that that's the plan, is they're gonna have these characters reappear in High Republic stuff, which would be really cool. Yeah. All right, let's move and groove on to our next question, which comes from Josiah Goswick 7353, who asks, "Who are your favorite Star Wars Rebels characters?" All right, I'm gonna have you start us off on this one, my boy. Who are your favorite Rebels characters?
I gotta say Thrawn and Kanan.
Excellent choices. So I'm right there with you with Kanan. I was tempted to pick Thrawn, but I love Kanan. I love Ezra. I love the growth of those two from when we first meet them in season 1, episode 1 to season 4. The growth in those characters is incredible. And then I also got to say my boy Chopper. Chopper is a straight up war criminal with how many, his kill count is insane. So those are going to be my picks. Thrawn was another one. The one issue that I have with Thrawn in Rebels is Rebels Thrawn is depicted differently than how Timothy Zahn depicts him. Timothy Zahn depicts him more as not as really villainous, which I kind of like how Timothy Zahn depicts Thrawn, because he makes it seem as if, I don't know, I get the sense that in the Thrawn novels that Thrawn might not fully be like a ride or die for the Empire, that he's doing this because he's trying to protect his people and the Chiss ascendancy, but that may not be the case. We might not find that to be the case based on the fact that Thrawn's going to be the main villain in the New Republic era shows. But yeah, I don't like that there's that like disconnect between how the character is depicted in the Thrawn novels and in the series. But I'm trying to remember, did he appear first in Rebels and then the Thrawn novel came out, I believe, right? Do you know?
I can't remember. I've read a couple of the canon Thrawn ones, and I'm currently reading Heir to the Empire over here.
Nice, yeah. So I think Rebels Thrawn happened first, if I remember correctly, because the first canon Thrawn novel, you learn about Thrawn's backstory and Arinda Price's backstory, which, that book is like one of my favorite canon novels. It's so good, I can't recommend it enough. So my thought would be that the book came after Thrawn appeared in Rebels because of the fact that Arinda Price is in the book, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I also, so just some honorable mention. I feel like you can't go wrong with any of the Ghost crew members. Like Zeb is awesome, dude. When we got that appearance of Zeb in The Mandalorian, I was like straight up yelling at my TV. I was so freaking pumped, and he looked incredible. So like,
they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, he looked awesome. So Zeb is great. Sabine, she's an excellent character. Hera's great. The Grand Inquisitor's awesome. The Fifth Brother, Seventh Sister, like all those characters are super dope. Rebels is it like, if there are people out there that have not watched Rebels, you have to watch that show. There are episodes that are like kind of like with the Clone Wars. I hate to use the term filler, that are, for lack of a better term, filler. But some of the characters and the storylines in that series are some of the best in all of Star Wars. So I can't recommend that series enough. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of excellent characters to pick from that series. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Kanan, Ezra, and my boy Chopper.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like cameos from other characters in Rebels. There's Lando, 3PO, R2.
Yeah, even the
Hondo.
I can never remember the name of the is it like logistics or manifest droid that winds up joining the Ghost crew and he constantly bickers with Chopper.
I know who you're talking about. But
he's so good, dude. He like there's the episode where he gets like launched into space and he thinks he's just gonna float off into space for eternity, and he's totally happy with it. He's like at peace and he starts singing a song. He's such a great character. So yeah, there's so many great Rebels characters to choose from. So Revan says in the chat, I hope we get a novel trilogy on the Ghost Crew someday. I would love if we got some releases, comics, novels exploring the Ghost Crew's time together. There's the one Kanan comic, which, have you ever read that comic before?
I haven't, no.
Oh, it's excellent, dude. I would highly, highly recommend it. It's really cool. Basically, and this is not going to give much away. Kanan winds up being stuck in like basically kind of like in a coma, and he's thinking about his past. And so you get to see Kanan's past and his experience during Order 66 and then afterward. It's a little bit different from how it's depicted in the Bad Batch, but other than that, it is, well, even that is not too big of a deal for me. But yeah, it's a fantastic comic. I would totally recommend it. I would love if we got some books or comics exploring more of the Ghost Crew's time together. I wonder if, my thought would be why we haven't really gotten a lot of releases for those characters is because I'm sure Lucasfilm has known that, hey, we're going to do some sort of like Rebel sequel series, or we're going to do something like Ahsoka. I think this has been in the works, or this has been planned for quite some time, and that's why we haven't gotten some other like books or comics diving into some of those characters. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I think anything with that sort of group would be cool, even if they made some appearance in Andor Season 2.
I thought we were going to potentially get them in Season 1. So it'd be great if we could get them in Season 2. Now, especially since now that we know like they're going to appear in live action for Ahsoka, you could very easily have them appear in Season 2 of Andor. I wonder though if let's say they were to do that, right? You've got to have Kanan. It's like Freddie Prinze Jr. came out recently and was like, I will not, I'm done playing Kanan. So I wonder who they could potentially get to play Kanan. Well, as I'm saying this, it's not like any of the other characters, the voice actors are portraying the characters in live action, so they could get someone. But yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you, man.
Thrawn. They've got Thrawn.
Thrawn's the only one, yeah, right? Because trying to remember, none of the voice actors. Well, actually, no, I take that back. Is also Geb. Not Geb. Zeb. He's the voice actor for Zeb. Is going to continue to do the voice work for Zeb moving forward. And Chopper is still going to be voiced by Dave Filoni, as far as I'm aware, which is great.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move and groove then on to our next question, which comes from Umbre Militos, who asks, should Lucasfilm culminate all of their post-Return of the Jedi shows and movies in a Thanos-style epic conclusion with Thrawn? What do you think about that, Ozzy?
I think if they can do it well, then definitely.
I agree with you. I mean, that seems to be the plan, is that's what they're going to be doing with Dave Filoni's film. And that's been, as far as I can tell, that's been the plan since back from 2020, when Kathleen Kennedy announced like, hey, we've got all these new series and movies in the works. The plan was that this era of The Mandalorian, all the shows and characters that are taking place during this time period, it's going to culminate in this big sort of climactic, epic sort of event. And that's what Dave Filoni's film seems to be. And I mean, like, I just think of my experience seeing Endgame and what's the one before it? I'm totally drawing a blank on the name. Infinity War. Like, seeing those in the theater was to this day still one of like the most incredible theatrical moments of my life. Like, both the Infinity War, I was like absolutely floored after seeing that. So if Lucasfilm could pull off something even remotely close to what Marvel did with Thanos, like, that would be sick. And I think a lot. Yeah. I would hope that with Thrawn and the Ahsoka series and it seems like they're going to be dipping into like legend stuff with Thrawn. I hope that if Lucasfilm could pull this off, that we could get some more people back on the Lucasfilm Disney train, because I think this could help Lucasfilm's image, for lack of a better term. So I'm hoping that they could pull it off, but that seems to be the plan.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now that we're talking about this, is kind of like this. I'm going to throw this question out to you. Do you think the Dark Jedi that are going to appear in Ahsoka, do you think we could potentially see? Well, we know now that Baylan, I would assume, unless they recast him, is not going to appear again. But I can't remember the female character's name. Do you think we could see her potentially ally herself with Thrawn?
I think so. I think, isn't that Baylan character some Dark Jedi mercenary or something?
Something along those lines. Because, yeah, it was, which I almost wish they wouldn't have revealed that. But, yeah, I think it was in like an Empire magazine interview or something like that. That maybe Dave Filoni or someone said that their character, they survived Order 66. And, yeah, I believe they're working as a mercenary.
Yeah. I think they'll probably be teamed up with Thrawn, given that they're attacking Rebel ships, or New Republic ships, rather.
Yeah, it seems like it, right? So yeah, because in Legends, right, there was which has Jorah Sabaoth. Have you gotten to the part with Jorah Sabaoth yet? Has he appeared?
No, I haven't yet. Yeah.
So yeah, in the Legends Thrawn trilogy, Thrawn has basically at his disposal this cloned Dark Jedi named Jorah Sabaoth, and I don't know if we will see Lucasfilm specifically do that, but I could see Lucasfilm saying, "Hey, well, not Baylan now, but let's say whatever the female character's name is, that character is going to wind up being an ally to Thrawn." Because I feel like if Thrawn has a Dark Jedi at his disposal, then you're going to need Ahsoka in the mix. You're going to need Ezra and potentially Luke in the mix. It makes Thrawn that much more of a formidable foe and serious threat to the New Republic. So I hope we're going to see them kind of working with Thrawn. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move. I keep doing this, dude. I keep forgetting to show the images that I put together for us. All right. So let's move on to our next question. This comes from Jake RV8TD, who asks, if Vader is so powerful in the Force, why didn't he know Leia was his daughter when he tortured her before making her watch Moff Tarkin blow up Alderaan? Or, at the very least, how come he did not sense her power in the Force and convince the Emperor to turn her to the dark side like he did for Luke, or just execute her instantly for being possibly a Jedi in hiding? So what do you think? What's your thoughts on this, Ozzy?
Why would he have a reason to suspect that Leia is his daughter?
Right? Like, what would be the reason?
Thing, yeah.
And one other thing I should mention is that Jake also said Vader was able to sense Obi-Wan during A New Hope. He's able to sense Luke in Return of the Jedi, and that he realized that Luke was his son in Empire Strikes Back, which the last one, that's not actually the case. Vader actually learned, at least in canon, he learns that Luke is his son not too long after the events of the destruction of the first Death Star. In Kieran Gillen's Star Wars comic, which is a really fun comic series, that was from 2015 to 2019, I think. After the Death Star is blown up, Vader hires Boba Fett to track down the boy who blew up the Death Star. Boba Fett he learns it was Luke Skywalker, and then Boba Fett tells Vader, the boy that blew up the Death Star, his name is Skywalker, and that's how Vader finds out he has a son. So not long after the Battle of Yavin, Vader finds out that he has a son. So yeah, I agree with you. What would make him like suspect that Leia could potentially be his daughter? Because at that point, he has no idea that he has children that are alive, right? He thinks that Padme has died, or I shouldn't say that. He knows Padme died, right? And he's assuming that, hey, they're the children or the child, because he didn't know that there were twins, died with her. So why would he have any reason to suspect that he has children? The other thing too is the Force kind of it doesn't work, as far as we know, it doesn't work that way where someone could just sense someone's blood relationship to one another. So the reason why he could sense Obi-Wan on the Death Star in A New Hope is because they were master and apprentice together. They've dueled each other. He knows what Obi-Wan's presence in the Force is. And then same thing with Luke in Return of the Jedi. He could sense Luke. Well, in Kieran Gillen's Darth Vader, is he Greg? I know in War of the Bounty Hunters they encounter each other. Do they encounter each other? I don't think they encounter each other in Greg Pak's Darth Vader. But in the comics, they encounter each other multiple instances. And so Vader is going to be able to know what his presence in the Force is like. So it would make sense to me. That's why he's able to sense each of those in Obi-Wan and Luke in different periods. With Leia, he's, as far as we are aware, right, he doesn't, at least as far as I know, that might be their first encounter with each other in canon. Because I'm trying to remember, Vader doesn't meet Leia in the Obi-Wan series, right?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that they did. So my thought is that when we see them in A New Hope, that might be the first time that they've seen each other, or one of the first few times that they interact with each other. Obviously, they're going to know about each other because she's a thorn in the Empire's side. Vader is the Emperor's fist, basically. So it would make sense that they would know each other. But as far as them actually meeting each other, I wouldn't be shocked if that's supposed to be their first time meeting. And then the part about how he couldn't sense her Force abilities. So my thought would be that she gets drugged up by that interrogation droid. That's how I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's how Vader finds out. No, that's right, because she tells Moff Tarkin Dantooine is where the base is initially. But yeah, Vader uses that interrogation droid to try to get information from her, and he drugs her up. And that, my thought would be, that would dull her Force connection, but she also doesn't have any training, or at that point, any real knowledge that she has any connection to the Force. Like we learned in the Obi-Wan series that she gets some information about the Force from Obi-Wan, but up to that point, and then to A New Hope, she would unknowingly or unwittingly use the Force. So I think that because she's drugged up, because she didn't necessarily know that she was Force sensitive or really know how to use the Force, it probably would dull her connection to the Force, the drugs that the interrogation droid used on her, making it difficult for Vader to be able to sense her Force connection. That would be my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, and for all Vader knows, she might have just had some interrogation resistance training or something.
That's a good point. Because he knows that she's a rebel operative, right? So yeah, he could potentially be thinking that, all right, she's clearly a rebel operative no matter what, regardless of what she's telling us. She could have had some sort of interrogation training, something to resist what we're going to do to her. So yeah, that could also be another reason as to why he could not sense her connection to the Force. Man,
Yeah, I think it's just he had no reason to.
I would love, this is kind of related, I would love to see Leia's time training with Luke during, what is it, like a year-long period or whatever? Year or two, maybe? I think that'd be so awesome.
I can't remember.
I mean, we got that glimpse of her and Luke training in The Rise of Skywalker. Something like a comic, like that'd be so cool, because it would be tough to do that in live action. So a comic or a cartoon, that'd be sick. Like I've seen people mention that they would love to see a cartoon of Luke with what the heck is his name? Lor Santeca. Kind of like their travels together, hunting or searching for like Force relics and Jedi artifacts, things like that. Like how cool would it be if there was a cartoon like that and we got to see Luke and Leia training together? That would be so awesome.
Yeah, I don't like pay attention to a lot of the stuff towards that sequel trilogy end.
So have you read Shadow of the Sith?
No.
Dude, so that takes place, I think it might take place after like the Mandalorian timeline. Cannot recommend it enough, dude. It is one of my favorite Star Wars novels, period, like Legends or canon. It is so sick. It's so good. I would highly recommend it. You get some information about Luke's Jedi Order, and just some other cool stuff. So yeah, I would totally recommend it.
Yeah. I've got way too many Star Wars books I need to read.
I know, dude. So I like pre-order pretty much every new Star Wars book, and they're piling up, man. And I read every single night, and like I can't keep up. There's just so many freaking Star Wars books, and like I have a list of all the stuff I want to read. Legends and canon, it's way too long. Like there's so much stuff. Yeah. All right. Let's move and groove on to our last question. It comes from Marvin Production, who asks, was Count Dooku brought to the Jedi Temple at the end of the High Republic era? I wanted to include this question because I see this a bunch where people mention that Dooku might have been brought to the Jedi Temple during the High Republic. Some people are not too sure, but Marvin, you are correct. So Dooku was born at the very end of the High Republic. So the High Republic. I just
got to check something. Sorry,
no problem.
A moment.
So Dooku is born during the very end of the High Republic. The High Republic takes place from 500 BBY to 100 BBY. And Dooku was born in 101 BBY. So just 2 years before the end of the High Republic era. And not long after his birth, our homeboy started to manifest his Force abilities unknowingly. And because of how rapidly his Force abilities were manifesting, that frightened his father. So his father contacted the Jedi Order, told them, hey, I have this son who's doing some weird things. Come and get him. And what's sad is that, so the Jedi Order, they send what's called Jedi Seekers to go pick up Dooku. And Jedi Seekers were those within the Order that would go and find Force-sensitive younglings that they could recruit to take to the Jedi Order. What's up, Ozzy? Welcome back, my friend.
All right, I'm back. Sorry.
That's all right. And so Dooku's father, Count Gora is Dooku's father's name, contacts the Jedi Order, tells him, hey, my son is doing some weird shit. Come pick him up, basically. And Dooku's father just like dumps him in the woods outside of their palace without any like food, water. If I'm not mistaken, like I think it was supposed to be wintertime. So we learn about this in Dooku Jedi Lost. And it's been a hot minute since I've read that book, the audio drama. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think when Dooku's father just drops Dooku off in the woods outside the palace, I think it's supposed to be like super cold out. Jedi Seekers get to him just in time before like Dooku was potentially going to also be eaten by animals. Like, yeah, Dooku's father is a piece of crap. And then they take him back to the Jedi Grand Temple on Coruscant. So yeah, Dooku was a Jedi initiate. Was it Clan Hawkbat? I think he was initiated into. He was a Jedi initiate at the very end of the High Republic, which I think is dope. But that's it for questions. Those are some fun freaking questions. Ozzy, this was so much fun, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was pretty cool, yeah.
I appreciate it immensely. Before we get ready to dip out, so is there anything you want to like plug? Any social media that you want to mention for people to follow you on?
Ah, it's all good. I've just got my channel, Aussie Star Wars Nerd, should be there when you search it up. Make a lot of clone trooper videos and stuff.
Which, dude,
yeah, that's about it.
I gotta give you credit, dude. Like, how much work? So, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Aussie Star Wars Nerd's channel or his videos, he does a lot of cool videos on like, hey, what is such and such clones, troopers, armor? What are the meanings behind some of the stuff on their armor? Like, dude, how do you find out? Because a lot of that stuff, I'm like, I have no freaking clue. How do you wind up like researching that stuff?
Just looking at it and just seeing, does it look familiar? Does it look like anything? If it represents an animal, I'll just put in a search like Star Wars animals with horns, and I'll scroll through hundreds of photos until I see something that matches.
So that's how you decipher that stuff. That's wild, man. Because like I'm watching those videos, I'm like, dude, this is pretty badass, and this is stuff that I had no clue about at all.
Yeah, it's been a pretty successful series for me on the channel, so it's fun to do.
And your poll, you stumped me, dude, on Darth Vader's Star Destroyer. I thought he only had the Executor. I didn't realize that he had his own, what was it called, the Devastator?
The Devastator, the one that chases Obi-Wan and the one that chases Leia in A New Hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love the name. The Devastator is such a great name. And I love the name of the Executor. His flagship's names are dope. I'm trying to remember what his flagship's name was during the Clone Wars. I can't remember what it was.
No idea.
That was the ship that our boy Admiral Yularen was on as well. And I know I've talked about it in the past, and I'm totally drawing a blank on it now. I'm pretty sure that it's a pretty good name. But yeah, the Devastator and the Executor are great names. Sean, welcome back. The stream went very well, but you are sadly at the tail end of the stream. So if you dipped out for a little bit, I would highly recommend watching the stream from its entirety. So any final thoughts, Ozzy? Any last comments, concerns?
Not really, no. Thanks again for having me on. It was fun.
You
I have
are
to get
very
you on my channel for a live stream.
That would be awesome, dude. I'd be totally down to do that, which you could kind of see Ozzy's got like a Grogu over his, would it be a right shoulder? Which I'm so jealous of, Ozzy. I gotta get one. I gotta get one of those. And I love the clone trooper in the back.
Cool. Yep.
You got some dope stuff. And so we've talked about helmets. I totally want to get a Bo-Katan helmet. I love Bo-Katan's helmet. I do you know if can you get a Death Trooper helmet? I love Death Troopers armor.
Actually, I have seen one for sale somewhere, and you can get one. I just don't think it's Black Series.
Yeah, some of the Black Series helmets look dope as hell, but yeah, I would love to get a Death Trooper helmet there. I love their armor so much. All right, my friends, that is all the time we have. If you have not, you frickin' knuckleheads, like this video, subscribe to Star Wars Transmission, and subscribe to Ozzy Star Wars Nerds. If you haven't checked out his videos before, like I said, I would highly recommend them. He's got some really cool videos that I think you would like, especially if you're into the Clone Wars and the clones. He's got some cool videos and some cool theory videos as well. So yeah, make sure you check out Aussie Star Wars Nerd. I'm going to also shout out our Discord. Aussie is a moderator on the Discord and helps me out a bunch. Aussie's the shit. So yeah, join Star Wars Transmissions Discord so we could keep the conversation going on Star Wars, and you could talk to Aussie and I. And Aussie, what's it? You have your own Discord server as well. I wish because I'm trying to remember. Is it like I think you have to pay to have a unique chat link. Like you can make your own link for the servers. I can't remember, but I wish it could just be like
it's Nitro stuff to do that.
Yeah, who earns? But yeah, so join Star Wars Transmissions Discord. Join Aussie Star Wars Nerds Discord, where I'm in Aussie's Discord. Aussie's in mine, and he helps me out with my Discord. So yeah, join ours so you can keep the conversation going. With that said, my friends, I'm probably gonna go play Halo and get my booty cheeks clapped for a little bit. But you guys have an excellent evening. May the Force be with you, and stay nerdy.
All right. I don't know if you're there.